Hello, and thank you to Mara, the BCA, and all of you for coming out this evening. First of all, I'd like to talk about what a zine is. Zine is short for magazine, obviously, but they are artist books, generally editioned or not editioned. They can cost as little or as much money as you want to produce them, and they can really be any facet of work. But what I enjoy most about zines is that they can be really just kind of fun and engaging. Really what you're doing when you give someone a zine, just a little tiny book, it can be your artwork, your writing, your ideas. It's a really wonderful representation, but you're also giving someone the ability to view your work on their ground and their settings. I think there's a lot of anxiety about viewing art, going into galleries, museums, etc. And when you're giving someone your work in this format, they get to view it and enjoy it kind of on their own grounds and standards, which I think is really unique and something that a lot of other formats don't give that opportunity. So I am a photographer, obviously. I don't work strictly with portraiture, landscape, or even like a still life type setting. I really work more on developing a narrative through my imagery. I try to take a selection of photographs and compose them in a way that I think it effectively says something. And with that in mind, I made my first issue of Flatlander, which was titled Seasonal Depression. And you will notice a note next to the first issue that reads, "Give photos to Mom, Dad, and Mark to see." And this was a note from my grandmother. This issue was produced from photos taken from 2 trips from Burlington, Vermont to Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And I was born in Great Barrington, Mass. And my grandmother still lives there in some family. But this was 2 trips. One when my grandmother was very sick, and the second was for her funeral, which was about 3 weeks apart. And my grandmother was a huge photographer growing up, and she sent me photos and notes like that regularly. And she was my first exposure to the photographic medium, which is awesome. I had no idea the history of photo at all. I was just getting these photos that were beautiful and well shot and well done, and she would make duplicates every time and send them to me. And she played a huge role. I mean, before I was looking at like Harry Callahan or Walker Evans or Stephen Shore, I was looking at my grandmother's work. And you can even see it in a photo like this. This is the Cove, which is a bowling alley in Western Massachusetts, and it is a little bit of a gathering area for my family, to say the least. And we would gather here, and my grandmother has a photo that is so similar to this photograph that is absolutely eerie. This is a photo of my cousin Emily's arm. This is after the wake, and we all met up at the Cove. You can actually see a little portrait of her down on the ID there, and she had gotten a memorial tattoo from my grandmother there. And this is just a photograph in the Cove with my family, surrounded by that in a post kind of series after the funeral. I returned from the funeral and wanted to apply that sense of loss and that idea to a series of zines. And I lost a little bit of roots. I lost a huge photographic influence for me. And so I took on the name Flatlander. I am a Flatlander. I am from Georgia. I was born in Western Mass, but I spent most of my life in Georgia. But I wanted to read a definition of Flatlander, and according to Vermonter.com, it is, which I don't know how much clout that carries, but used as a negative slander on non-native Vermonters or visitors, a Flatlander thinks they can meld their beliefs of what Vermont is into our native reality. Even if the Flatlander assimilates to Vermont culture and resides here for 50 years, they can never rid themselves of this label. This is the closest, up until 2 years ago, I ever got to a skiing photograph. But my favorite coworker and one of my good friends, who is a fifth generation Vermonter, likes to just call Flatlanders a jerk from away. So I started taking that concept of the Flatlander and photographing Burlington. And this was a photo I took outside, and the homeowner actually came out and yelled at me, said, "Why are you photographing my home?" And I pointed to the snow that is falling off the top with the icicles there. And I was like, "That's a really cool thing to see." And they asked if I would send them a print eventually. This is just more focusing on the people, the community, the things, the places, and just how these people interact and engage. And it's a tight crop, and it's a tight photo, but I definitely spent a lot of time photographing the people and the area. This was a fun series to do, and this is Most Everything Must Go and Flatlander number 6, which is untitled, which was my going out of business sale. I love the idea of somebody saying most everything must go and still having reservations about what they should keep. That's a certain sense of urgency. But I was stockpiling these images. This one of a woman stockpiling can of mushroom soup was one of my favorites. And just really looking at Vermont through the lens of a Flatlander and feeling like I was turning my lens that way. And I think that the content and the way the photographs are done definitely speak to that. And it started to feel like the project was organically closing. It did feel like it was coming to an end and is coming to an end, I think. Especially acknowledging the commercial aspect of it. But what really did it for me was I recently went home to Georgia and I photographed my grandmother's 80th birthday. And this is a photo from that. My mom has 7 siblings, and my grandmother is a very strong woman. She is 80, she just turned 80. I went home, she held her 80th birthday at her favorite bar in Kennesaw, Georgia, and it was surrounded with everyone in her NASCAR club, and it was really a beautiful thing. And to go from photographing the end of one very important person's in my life and photographing the celebration of one very important person, 2 very strong women in my life, and how they both influenced me, it just feels like the right time to close it out. And so I'm looking forward to producing this. I haven't done the final issue yet, but I think it'll be done sooner than later. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening, and have a great night.